let's see whether we can have some sort of reconciliation between the two. So we know that where the market is strong, where the state will be strong. So under this new consensus, they try to highlight some of the what we call the eclectic role. Okay, so it is a very selected role. You just identify the areas where the market will never perform well. If you identify those areas, and if you then you just allow the state, okay, you do this job, because in any case the market will not perform these activities. Okay. So these are the eclectic role of the state under the new consensus. For example, if a country wants to industrialize, then both the free trade and there should be an expansion of the internal market for industrialization. Okay, so the trade reform, yes, it has to be undertaken by the state. The state should promote the free trade by all means. Okay, so the trade restriction should be moved by the state. Otherwise, the market cannot function. And also, there should be an expansion of the internal market. For example, initially you can start with the expansion of the internal market, and then you can go for trade reform. So the ISI strategy the ISI stands for the import substitution industrialization. So initially you give protection to your domestic farms, okay, which is the ISI strategy to have a greater market, so that they don't have to compete with the global forces, global farms. So once your internal market is bigger, and then you go for trade reform. So this type of sequencing can help the market to flourish. Okay? So here we are not telling that no, the government should make the trade free. Government should not have any role in trade. The market should be free, and they will decide no. You may have to expand your internal market first. So which means that you need to have some sort of protection first, which is under this ISI strategy, the import substitution industrialization. Okay? And then there should be a free trade. And also there should be human capital created by the state, which is necessary for the effective use of the market, because these market needs the human capital, okay? The skilled workforce. Think about let's compare China and India. One of the most significant difference between the China's growth and the India's economic growth is that China invested heavily in human capital, whereas even though India grew at a much faster rate as a percentage of their GDP, they did not invest that much. Okay? So therefore, India will still have the shortage of skilled workforce because the government did not invest that much in human capital. Okay? So in that case, it is not just about the economic growth. Even with a high economic growth, you may not achieve quite a lot in terms of this human capital. And therefore, the state will have to take a lead. Okay? The state should create this human capital so that your growth rate can become sustainable. So it will be very much resistant to the shock. Okay? When your human capital base is strong, then even if there is an economic shock, the people will not, or the economy will be able to absorb that shock quite easily, because then the people can switch from one job to another job, because their human capital is quite strong. They're more skilled. If you have got skill, then you can move from one job to another job and so on. Okay, so therefore the government should provide this human capital, and also the government can address some of the market failures through the tax and subsidies. You tax the demerit goods, you subsidize the merit goods. So then the people will know which one is good for you, which one is bad for you. Okay? So then some of the informational externalities can be addressed by the state. For example, the export marketing cooperative. Okay, so this is another way the government can help the market, because even if you make the trade free, then in many countries the farms, they do not participate in the trade, in the global market, because they don't know the destination of where they should get the right price. Okay, so instead of that, if the government says that, well, there will be a cooperative, so you all put money there, you all put 10 pounds there. So if we can generate enough fund, then we will search for the market. So where our export should go, where there is a demand, where there is a high price. But if you ask one individual farm, they will not spend that much money to find the market. They only know it's a developed country. But sometimes many developing countries, instead of going for United States and the European Union, they can now export their goods in East Asia, because in East Asia now their standard of living is quite high. They can buy very expensive goods in East Asia. So, but to find this market, or to search for the market, you need to spend money. So these export marketing cooperative can help if the government coordinates their activities, and so that there will not be any free rider problem. Because if I find the market, then you follow me. Then you start selling your goods also in the same market. So because of free rider problem, I will invest in finding the market and spend money in finding the market abroad. So, and also we know that the government can have all these regulation and the trade policy, investment policy, institutions, regulatory capacity. So these are all important, we know that. And also we want the government in certain areas. So when we talk about the market, we know that the certain markets, for example, telecommunication, power, water, port. So there are certain sectors or the certain industries where the market failure will be quite significant. And Joseph Stiglitz mentioned that in the industry where the information is very important, you will always find a significant market failure. Okay? Producing milk and producing the, let's say, a mobile or telecommunication or service is not the same. In certain areas, it is more information-based. Certain goods or certain industries are based on basic, tangible output. So according to Stiglitz, that the industries which use information either as an input or as an output, you will always find that the market will fail, this information-based industry. Okay? So therefore, we need to have significant government intervention in those areas because of this market failure in those areas. Okay? For example, it could be telecommunication, it could be the port services, or it could be power, okay? So otherwise, after privatization, there will be inefficiency because of the market. There will be significant market failure after privatization. Then you will blame privatization. That the privatization will work. But the thing is that yes, the privatization can work if you've got regulatory authorities. The privatization can work if you've got competition. But the competition and the regulations should come from the state. So the privatization alone cannot solve the problem. You need privatization, yes, but you need a regulatory authority and you need a competition, which has to be created by the state. Okay? So, but this will happen only in certain areas. We're not telling that you have to have a regulatory authority in all industry, in all sectors. Okay? Only in certain areas we need. And also, we need some sort of technological deepening because now the technology becomes so important as an engine of growth. We need the state to take the role because the technology is expensive. It could be research and development and so on. And therefore, the state should have a significant role in deepening the technology in an economy, whether through importing technology or whether to invest money in research and development and so on, okay, to finance the innovation and so on. Okay. So here there are a few roles which the state can perform, but these are basically ranked in terms of the state capacity. We know that the certain states have got good capacity, they have got good institution, they have got human capital and so on. So based on the capacity, the state capacity or the capability, the state can do certain role. For example, the first one is the custodian role, which each and every state should perform, which anyone can perform. It is a very, very basic function that a state should always perform, to be the custodian. Okay? So which is to act as a caretaker. Okay? In the ownership of the country and to provide a very basic minimum, for example, macroeconomic stability, inflation, and having the monetary policy, fiscal policy correct, and so on. Very minimum basic function. Then from there, if the state is still slightly better than that, if its ability is better, then it can become a producer. Okay? So the custodian role means you are not producing anything, or the state is not producing anything, but the second role is the producer, which means that the state can produce social overhead capital. For example, education, health, these are the social overhead. Okay? So the state should produce this overhead capital, and also the state should produce the infrastructure, various types of infrastructure, physical infrastructure, I mean. Okay? But if the state is very weak, then it is better to give the money to the private sector to construct or to build this infrastructure. But if the state has got the capacity, then the state can produce the infrastructure, can undertake the infrastructure investment. The third one is the midwifery role, which is, it is not just producing, it is also the helping and the guiding the market. So it is steering, it is assisting, and it is inducing the market. Okay? So that not only the government is producing, the government will say that, well, I will produce these things, but I will not intervene in those sectors, but I will help you. Okay, you produce this, you produce that through industrial policy, through encouragement, through subsidies, through financing, and so on. Okay, so the government can steer and the government can assist these farms so that these the overall rates of return from investment can be higher through government assistance. Okay. And lastly, the husbandry role, which is basically the complementary to this midwifery role, in the sense that it is not just helping the existing market, it is also the creation of the new industry. Okay? The classic example is this the Electronic and Telecommunication Research Institute, Electronic and Telecommunication Research Institute in South Korea. Today's success of Samsung and the Gold Star, which is now called LG. So the current success of the LG and Samsung lies in this ETRI. This is a research institute. Okay, they created this skilled workforce, and these Samsung and these LG and other electronic industry, which tried to imitate and reach the ability of Japan's semiconductor industry. Okay, well, it was made possible only because this state sector, which is ETRI, this public or the government institute, they created the skilled workforce, the engineers, I mean, electronic engineers, let's say. Okay? So the government created these engineers, but they were employed by the private sector, like Samsung and Gold Star. At that time, it used to be called Gold Star, now the LG. Okay? So, but that was creating a new market, like a future-oriented market. So not because they had the objective that yes, we will have to make semiconductor. If the Japan can make semiconductor, then why not you? So they wanted to do that, and that's why they had it. Okay. So then we said that so what sort of role the state should perform should depend on the the government should address the market failure first, and also the government should ensure the social equity. Fine, but all things has to be determined by the state capability. You can't expect a weak state to become the midwife, no, because they themselves they're weak, and that's why they cannot assist the market. Okay, so that if the state's capability is higher, only then you can expect the state should guide the market. Okay, for example, like in state in 1970s and so on. So the government under the industrial policy. Okay, so when we say that there should be very much a proactive government to guide the market to industrial policies, that can only happen if the state can reach the level 3. Okay, because under the item number 1 and 2, possibly the industrial policy will not be significant, will not be able to improve the market mechanism significantly, because the state will be considered still to be quite weak under 1 and 2. So most of the developing countries, of course, now they're at level 2. They produce certain goods and services. So our objective is to improve the state capacity up to level 3 as much as possible. So in that sense, we are not talking about the privatization. Rather, we are talking about the improving the capacity of the government. It is not replacement of the state. It is not withdrawing the state from the economy. Rather, it is improving their capacity. Okay? So if you can improve their capacity up to level 3, which is the midwifery role, then the market will flourish automatically, because that state will promote the market. So therefore, under the new consensus, they say that no, one of the most important failure of the Washington consensus was that they did not really pay much attention to the state capacity. They say that the state is weak, so you please go away. But the solution would have been, Yes, you are weak, then how can we remove your weakness? How can we improve your performance? How can we improve your capacity? Okay? Basically, is there any way to improve this?